Hey guys, this is James from Shimwrecker Enterprises, and today I'm back with another video, but this one's going to be a little different than what I've done in the past. I drilled up the three new Storm releases over the weekend, the Parallax, the IQ Tour Nano Pearl, and the Trend, and I figured this would be a good opportunity to kind of describe to y'all how I go about learning new equipment, because it contains a lot of kind of general ball reaction theory, and I think it's kind of helpful information to have, not just for learning a new piece of equipment, but taking an arsenal and going in somewhere and figuring out what the lanes are actually telling you and how to adjust to that. So I'm going to kind of talk through what I'm seeing, my thoughts as the ball is going down the lane. These are literally the first time I've thrown any of these three balls, so this was very much a learning experience. This is totally unedited aside from cutting out dead space. These are shots in sequence as they happened when I was testing them for the first time this morning. So the first ball we're going to be looking at is the Parallax here on the left side of your screen right now. It's a new cover. I believe it's called Traction X7 Hybrid. It comes shiny from the factory, and it's got a big block asymmetric core with the numbers that kind of resemble the nucleus core from the Cell series. A little bit higher RG, but still a very high differential and a very high intermediate differential. So from that, I'm already kind of thinking, shiny hybrid asymmetric, big block ASIM core, but also not a super low RG core, and it's a new cover. So the cover is going to kind of provide some unknowns, but I'm expecting the core to pick up and roll heavy, but not necessarily be super duper early, if that makes sense. So then from that, let's jump over to the video and let's take a look here. So this first shot right here, I did kind of start out throwing it a little faster, but threw it okay. And ball went through the pins pretty well. So I'm like, okay, let's give it another look. This one I definitely missed out, and I kind of missed it off my hand a little bit. And you can see even from that, it's already a little slower off the spot. That plus this shot here, where that shot right there, the ball kind of really came off the spot slowly. It didn't really make a sharp defined motion. It's a little lazier down lane. So even from that, I'm already thinking, okay, this is going to probably be a slow response ball, meaning it's not going to like big directional change. And so let's roll the tape some more from here. Let's see if these next couple shots. That one picks up pretty well. I gave it a little more time to react. But I mean, still, I'm not super far left by my standards. That shot there, I never got to the friction, and it sat there. So at this point, I am definitely thinking, okay, this is a slower response ball, needs to see some friction to be able to tip, but also doesn't like a big directional change. So you can see those last couple shots that I threw right there, where it caved out the 710, and then I left a crumble bucket to only leave an 8-pin. Those two shots, I was getting a little further left and trying to get it to the friction and give it some time to react, and it just wasn't really wanting to climb the hill. So that kind of reconfirmed what I saw from those first few shots, that this is a slower response ball. So then let's move back to the right and see what I have here. Go back about to where I started. That ball went through the pins a lot better. So I'm already thinking, all right, straighter is more this ball's wheelhouse. Miss in a little bit, and it's still, pounds at high flush. Buck pins don't really stand much of a chance. That shot there, that one I got a little quick. I was kind of testing the limits of how right and how fast I could go. And that was kind of the outside limit of that. So then I'm like, okay, I just need to roll it and give it a little bit of time to pick up and go, and we're off to the races. And you can see, I think from this point on, I throw a combined 13 or 14 strikes in a row. I actually shot a legit 289 while I was filming for this ball. You saw earlier, it's not a ball that likes to cover a lot of boards, but once I kind of got in the right part of the lane, I essentially have complete pocket control, a really smooth, predictable motion. But you can see it's still got, okay, there I jump back left. Still looks really slow, kind of lazy, barely gets the 5-pin out. But it's still this, so just from these few shots here, I'm thinking, okay, so this is a slower ball, but it's not as early as something like an Omega Crux or a UFO, for example. But it also likes to see some friction. So I would very much, and I'm going to say this for all three balls in this actually, So I want to test them in higher friction environments, so I think they're really going to look good there. See, I got a few more shots here, I think. This might actually be the last shot right here. Nope, got that one. But anyways, from this, I'm definitely thinking that the Parallax, it's a little slower ball down lane, but it still kind of tumbles. So I want to test this some more and get to know it better, but that just kind of initially picking up on the skill set of the ball is it likes less directional change. And so if I skip forward a little bit here, I threw a few comparison shots with my astrophysics, which is a similar layout. And you can see, even on this exact same lane, right after I was shooting for the Parallax, you can see just how much more aggressive the astrophysics is off of friction. So even though they're both shiny asymmetrics, it picked up pretty quickly that the Astro likes to make a big directional change. You can see here I'm a full arrow plus left of where I was with the Parallax when I throw my astrophysics, and the Astro is still going through the pins well versus the Parallax stood no chance from there. So still kind of trying to feel out the reaction of the Parallax, but that's my general thinking is it does like straighter angles, it does like friction. So I suspect put it on a higher friction lane surface than what I was testing on here, and I think I'll probably be in business. All right, and the next ball that we are looking at is the Storm IQ Tour Nano Pearl. You can see it here in the middle of your screen. Again, same layout on all three. These are factory surface. I didn't touch anything out of the box. I just plunked holes in them and went out to the lanes. So the Nano Pearl has it's got the cover stock is Nano Pearl reactive, and it comes at a 3,000 grit sanded surface from the factory. So just right there, Nano, that's basically particle essentially from in the storm world, means it's going to hook early and be pretty smooth down lane, generally speaking. But it's also got the centripetal core from the IQ Tourer series, which is lower RG and lower differential. So generally speaking from that, what I'm kind of expecting from this ball is I think it's going to hook pretty early, but I also think that it's going to be pretty smooth down lane. Definitely not a jumpy ball in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Definitely, kind of in the same vein of the other balls in the master line, the Phase 2s, the IQ Tour series, stuff like that, where you've got a whole lot of control and a very predictable motion down lane. So let's flip back over to the video and let's see what I've got here. So these first couple shots, again, still kind of feeling out the ball. That one didn't really go through the pins super well. Messengered out the 10 pin. Got that one to the frictional earlier, and it snapped the 10 out, but it's still kind of deflecting a little bit. And already what I'm seeing here is this ball is hooking very, very early. This house shot is actually 50 feet long, believe it or not. But you can see the ball is already kind of starting to get into the hook phase by about the 40-foot mark, which is the back of this first tracer right here. Or somewhere in that general range, like the 38 to 40-foot mark is already starting to pick up and read, even though the pattern's significantly longer. So from that, and seeing the ball really arc through the pins those first few shots, and then I got one a little fast, and I 2-8-10'd. From those, again, I'm thinking, okay, probably a slower response ball, but this is definitely hooking earlier, so it needs to see a little more oil. But the other part of this also is really smooth stuff tends to not look the greatest at Buffalo Lanes Carry, which is where I'm filming this video. So, I'm not expecting this ball to be a lights out look in this particular building. But let's roll the tape and kind of see how we progress from here. So that one I got there a little more. But it read early, and so I'm still kind of trying to figure out how to manage that. And that was just a really bad shot. Shoved that one straight up the lane. It had no chance. And so, again, you can see this constant theme coming through. Picked up early, 9 pin. But this ball is definitely reading very early and being very smooth down lane. Again, it's not that it's rolling out per se. It's just that it's not. Yeah, there you go. Picked up really early and just went straight Brooklyn. The front of this hash mark right here is about 35 feet, and that's where it started hooking on that last shot. I got to the frictional early, which that's my fault, but it definitely seemed like it was picking up a good amount of oil off the lane, but also still making a very strong move once it's soft friction, as opposed to something like a UFO in this center is really, really smooth and not as much directional change. Ditto for other strong cover balls like the Omega Crux is really, really smooth and controlled in this center, almost Parallax like, honestly. So then I saw this shot go Brooklyn, and so I'm thinking at this point, all right, I need to get away from that hook spot and find some more oil. And that shot right there, I think I moved 4 or 5 left, kept it in the oil longer, and I was off to the races. Stayed in that same spot, missed right, and it went through the pins a little bit better. So from all this, it's pretty evident at this point what this ball is. Is this very early, very smooth, off balance there, still went through the pins well. So it's very early, it's very smooth, but it's still continuing down lane. And that's something that Storm hasn't really had in their lineup in a little bit, is this ball that picks up early, but is still like really continuous and doesn't really ever quit down lane. And so especially from these couple shots right here, where I moved further left and tried to circle the lane a little more and the ball still goes through the pins, from those, that really excites me. Is that, I'll have this ball that's going to be smooth and controllable, but that I can get to recover a lot better than something like, say, something that'll be able to recover, but still dig through volume at the same time. So I think it's going to be kind of an interesting combination, almost reminiscent of the Idol Pro to a certain extent in that regard, which I'm thinking it'll probably get a little closer to that as I break the cover in. So then, move back right for a few shots. I think that one goes to the pins really well. It does. But you can see versus when I was playing in this part of the lane with my Parallax, it was a little more willing to go through the pins easier from there. Like the Nano Pearl, I'm almost fighting early friction from this part of the lane where I wasn't with my Parallax earlier. And I think that's a combination of the cover stock being a little different, Nano Pearl versus this new hybrid cover, and also the surface prep with the Nano Pearl being 3000 grit sanded versus the Parallax is shiny out of the box. So then I've got a few more shots here, just kind of tinkering around with limits at this point. That one worked really well. That shot I kind of got around it more, kept it in the oil a long time. Bounced that one and 7 pinned. I have a hard time with the ball bouncing when I loft it in the center, so that's kind of something to keep in mind. Yeah, that one's, I got into the lane a little better, but you can see even from that shot right there, it's still like continuing and going left. And I mean, it went high flush and it chased the 8 pin off the deck. So that's really encouraging that if I get in those situations where I need that like continuous boomy type of arc motion, but a little bit bigger cover, that this ball could be really, really good for that. So then let's jump forward here real quick. I had my phase 2 along with me, just to shoot a few shots with that. So you can see here, that shot I just got to the friction way too early. That was the same miss where my Nano Pearl went Brooklyn. Overcompensated a little bit, kept that one in the oil, but it held line and went high flush. So then this shot right here is where I kind of start to see the difference. Is the phase 2 wants to, I feel like they're both hooking in about the same spot, but the phase 2 kind of pulls up and gets into the roll phase a little bit sooner and gets almost a little more kind of forward through the pins, whereas the Nano Pearl is just like a really, really continuous arc and doesn't ever really stop hooking. Again, this is something I'm expecting this relationship to change a little bit as the Nano Pearl, as I get the cover broken in on the Nano Pearl, and I guess we'll see how this progresses, but that's kind of what I was seeing initially with this. And then last but certainly not least, we've got the Belmo ball, the new trend that's coming out. It's got R2S Pearl on it as the cover stock this time. It's the same cover as what's been on balls like the IQ Tour Pearl, the High Road Pearl, the Code Black, the Astrophysics. Some of the best ball Storms ever made, period, have this cover on it. So definitely have high hopes for that from a reaction perspective. It's got the same piston core as the Pro Motion in it. So symmetrical core, is about a 252 RG and a pretty high differential. So I'm expecting kind of baseline. I throw my Astrophysics a ton, so I know that ball very, very well. So essentially it's symmetrical versus asymmetrical cores, asym with the Astro, symmetric with the Trend, and a slightly higher RG. So kind of what I'm thinking coming into this is that the trend will feel very familiar to the Astro for the first 40 to 45 feet of the lane. And then where the Astro, because it's asymmetric, picks up, gets through into the roll phase a little sooner and kind of tumbles through the pins, that I'm expecting the trend is going to kind of be a little more arcy and round down lane and actually store a little bit more energy. So then let's go to the lanes and see what we've got here. This first shot, see I get it to the friction and it just boomerangs right off of it. So at that point I'm thinking, okay, this is about what I'm expecting. These next couple shots come in very light, kind of don't really make the corner soon enough. And so from these two shots right here, where I just went, essentially crumble out a bucket for a 7-10, and then I actually do bucket and the ball never really stood a chance of climbing up the hill from just a slight move left off of that 4-pin. That's already got me thinking that this ball has a pretty weak cover stock, that it's going to be pretty clean down lane and not really going to do a whole lot in oil, but then respond very strongly once it sees friction. So let's roll the tape here, and this is still at the factory surface. I got a couple more shots here. Move back right, throw a good one. It strikes, and then I throw another one here, get it to friction. Probably flush, but I didn't. That was almost identical to the last shot, and I almost 9-pinned. Then I move further left, throw it straight at the friction, and I do 9-pin. And so from those, a combination of all this is telling me that it is a pretty responsive ball, even though it is still at least decently round off of the spot. But it still needs to see some friction is kind of what I'm picking up from this, because if I get it in the oil, it doesn't really stand much of a chance of hooking. So I then did what I normally do with pretty much every ball that's got R2S Pearl on it that I ever throw, and that is I hit it with a 2000 pad by hand. I barely touched it just to kind of barely crack that factory polish. The objective here is to essentially keep it from skating quite as much in the oil. And so from that, let's hit play, and I think you'll be able to see an immediate difference. So that one went through the pins really well. I actually threw that in the same place where I 2-pinned just a minute ago. And so then, I move another 4 or 5 left, and it still kind of wobbles a little bit down lane. So from all of this, it's become pretty evident what the ball is. That one went through the pins really nice, but I got it to the friction a little bit quicker. So from all this, it's kind of becoming evident this ball goes pretty long before it actually starts hooking and before it gets into the roll phase. You can see those two shots right there. I flat 10 and 3-10 from the same spot. So that's just kind of struggling to get the ball to pick up in the correct spot, but that's because it's too weak for the amount of friction that we're actually seeing on the lanes. It's not able to read the mid lane in the correct spot. So then I'm just kind of moving around the lane, trying different things, get that one to the friction really fast, and it comes back and actually goes to the pins very well. So then combination of all this is essentially telling me the trend is very clean, makes a big down lane move, but it doesn't really get into the roll phase as quickly as my astrophysics. So that means this is going to be a ball that I'm probably going to throw a lot like later on in a block, once the lanes have gotten pretty crispy. And I need a ball to really get down the lane and arc, but not really snap too much off of the friction. So this is definitely going to be... It's looked a lot better in my testing when I was standing really far to the left and throwing it to the right, like that last shot that I just showed you where I got the 10-pin out late. That shot right there. Stood really far to the left, got it straight to the friction. That one bounced a little too much, but it still was trying to make it back up the hill. That should be a little bit better. Yep, it is. So the trend is really feeling like a ball that's coming alive as it's going down the lane as I move further left. So then just to kind of, again, give myself a reference point, I pulled my astrophysics back out to throw a couple more test shots. And so you can see here, that probably would have wrapped 10 with the trend, but it 4-pinned with the astrophysics. So you can see it's kind of picking up a little bit earlier and rolling through the pins more. It was a little bit earlier and a little bit smoother as a result. That misses that probably would have struck or gotten back to the pocket with the trend, but it didn't with the astrophysics. And then this shot here, I kept in the oil the whole time, and with the astrophysics, got to like the 10 board at 45 feet, which is basically the end of the pattern, and it still got through the pins versus the trend wouldn't have made the corner from there. So this is telling me that the trend where the Astro is gonna, if the Astro is hooking a little too early and kind of rolling out on me, then I'll probably be able to just go to the trend and it should go through the pins very, very well, because it's going a little bit longer before it kind of gets into that roll phase to actually go through the pins properly. So then that's kind of, I hope this was a decent explanation kind of my general thought process of what I'm seeing, of kind of how I'm thinking about these balls as I'm testing them. I know this is a pretty deep concept, and I'm sure y'all have plenty of questions on why I'm making the adjustments I am and kind of what I'm seeing and why I think what I think from certain ball reactions and certain ways that the ball goes through the pins. But definitely reach out if you have any questions, and I will do my best to answer them. And hopefully this gives you all a little bit of insight into kind of how to read ball motion and what I'm looking for when I'm testing new stuff. Thanks for watching. Good luck out there on the lanes, and good luck and good bowling.